I felt a release of, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I literally almost just killed a person. My name's Josh. So I am from a small town. It's called Cedartown. I came from a family of four. My older brother, my mom, my dad. None of our family, really had any problems per se. I was a really curious kid. I would literally catch bumblebees in my hand and try to figure out what they were, until one, actually stung me. I guess I was catching carpenter bees. I don't know. I was just a really curious, very scientific-minded kid. And I grew up in a home that was faith-based. My mom made us go to church every Sunday. Just kind of the nuclear family. And I met some friends in high school. I was 16, 17. Right at the end of 16, at the beginning of 17. Started smoking pot with my friends. It was the thing to do because it was a small town. There's really nothing else to do. So that started me on that path. And then I had this friend when I was 18. He was like, "Hey, have you ever tried? Have you ever tried dope?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "Well, this is called crank." So I did that, and that kind of started me on the path. I was like, "Wow, this made me feel amazing." I'd only do it like every other weekend, maybe. I stopped because I went to college, went to culinary school. And I learned a lot, but I only stayed there for 3 months because I ended up dropping out. I also skipped out of class a lot because I was smoking pot in the dorm room, playing video games. I guess playing video games was my passion, and smoking pot just made me feel good to escape the world. And I've always been overweight, so I fought with that too. That was kind of the beginning of my substance use. When I dropped out of college, things got more intense as far as substance use. I started using what would be considered ice and crack. I mean, just anything I could get my hands on, anything to get me up. That's really the main thing for me. I really enjoyed ice because it made me feel like Superman. It's almost like it gave me a purpose to wake up because I didn't feel like I had one before that. Because I dropped out of college. I felt like an ultimate failure. Because I've always been more of an academic-minded person, as in wanting to gain more knowledge. So that hit me hard, and I just kind of spiraled. And I ended up living in a trailer without water and power, cockroaches going everywhere. I wasn't bathing, wasn't paying my truck payment or anything. I actually got another job, and I was working at a really nice institute, but I ended up losing that job as well. It was just like every 3 months I would end up losing my job because I just wouldn't give up feeling better than what reality felt like for me. It's like it was filling a hole that I couldn't deal with reality. That's kind of where it cut into everything, and it cut into every facet of my life, whether it be relationships, school, definitely with my parents. I was told that I could not go on my parents' property at one point, which I don't blame them. I was very manipulative. You could not trust a word coming out of my mouth. I used my intelligence for evil, in other words. But I was raised in the church setting, so thinking back on that, I've always liked the danger, I guess, because Revelation was my favorite part of the Bible when I was younger. I'm talking like 8, 9, 10 years old, They wouldn't teach that in Sunday school because it was too taboo. But that was my favorite part. But yeah, I've always clung to the more exciting, the more dangerous, whatever is better than what reality persists. It came to a point where so me and my friend had a fight. We were in the trailer, right? And I had him on the ground and I had almost choked him to death. I'd almost killed somebody, literally. I mean, he turned purple. He couldn't gasp for air. That's how bad I was choking him. And I didn't want that. I don't want that on my soul. I didn't want that, taking over my mind for the rest of my life. And that made me call my friend, which he wouldn't come. Then I prayed. And because it's the only thing, at this point, I didn't really have faith, but I was like, God, just please get me out of the situation. Because my friend wouldn't come, but then the next day he called me and he's like, I'm coming to get you. And I was like, okay, wow. My prayer worked. He did. He came and picked me up and took me to Rome, and I got away from, the general lifestyle. Now I was still smoking pot, but that was just to get me by. But yeah, that was the first step. It was getting away from that house, getting away from that environment, and completely putting it behind me. Deleting numbers, all the numbers I had on my phone, all the contacts, all my friends, who I really loved and really thought my friends. And some of them are still my friend to this day, but very, very, very few. But that started my journey. And then I started working at Walmart. I got a job, and I stayed there for 7 months. Still until I started doing pills. But that was the continuation of me trying to escape reality. For about the first 4 years of my recovery, which I still count as my recovery because I still wasn't doing dope and I wasn't doing crack and I wasn't doing Adderall, I did smoke pot, but I did it maybe once a week just to take the anxiety away. And that feeling would last throughout the rest of the week for me. For the first 4 years, I struggled. I really struggled because I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anybody to talk to, anywhere to turn to, really. My mom and dad didn't understand. My brother didn't want to have anything to do with it. And my friends were like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's sad, but I don't know what to tell you. So it's kind of alone in that. I wished I'd had a place like Mosaic. I wish I had somebody to turn to during that time, but I didn't. So I did the only thing that I knew from my childhood, and I turned to God. And that has helped monumentally. My faith has helped me monumentally. Then I got a job at Highland Rivers in the men's transitional unit, a 28-day program, as people know it. I worked there for about a year and then ran the program for about 3 months. This is actually a huge part of my recovery. Is when I first started there, I didn't really understand a whole lot, and then as I went out through that year, those guys taught me more than I knew about myself. Than anybody else, And then I got the job at Mosaic because they had a position open up for peer navigator, and I really wanted it. I was like, that seems, because I love knowledge, but I wasn't a clinical person. I like this. I like the one-on-one talk, I've been there 3 years now, almost, right at 3 years. And I have learned that I love all recovery, that I love building computers. Didn't know I could do that, but I learned that in my recovery. I learned that I could do art as well in my recovery, and that brought me a lot of happiness. So I've learned a lot of things about myself that I never knew I was capable of. It was this last spring. I became the outreach coordinator at Mosaic Place. And I have found that there are a lot of organizations that are faith-based that don't share the all pathways to recovery that we at Mosaic, very much have a foundation of. You kind of just have to just show them a different perspective while you have the perspective that you have, because we can only go by our lived experience, right? Because this is when I was in my addiction, I think back, I felt like it was impossible to stop, but it's not. In fact, I don't believe anything's impossible, I would say it's not impossible. You can do it. It's just gonna take time, it's gonna take persistence, And it's going to take your willingness to talk to others and reach out to them when you're really struggling. And if you can do that, if you can just put a little bit of effort, just a tiny bit, just one day, if you could just go one day and do something, you know, like go into an addiction recovery support center or to a church or whatever it is that you want to do, it's definitely not impossible. You can do it.